if we're looking at the root pattern, is going to be the bottom string, okay, the root 2 3. All right, no matter where you do a root 2 3, here's an E major root 2 3. That's an E major. I call it the Ionian string shape. Okay, that's what I'm going to start calling it. I don't mean to throw people off, but that's how you start an Ionian scale. Okay, or if you were doing the short patterns, let's say you don't have a capo here, because you don't, you know, I have more fretboard here, so I can go like this. I can go like this. How can I go? Okay, or something like this, like all right. So if I had the capo here, right here, or if this was your fret nut, you wanted to do it in E, not in F. Sorry, my bad. These notes would be sunken. Okay, so you can still do an Ionian from the short pattern, but in the long modal patterns, pretty much this is an Ionian root pattern. So in the key E, it'd be just 3 whole notes. Now let's look at the D string shape. By the way, that's the root E string shape. It has a D there just for reference, because you get the D, the Dorian, okay, which is F sharp, G sharp, A in the key E. So I leave the D there just for reference, but it's the root E pattern there. Okay, that's Ionian. Okay, so that would be the E root pattern there from our little chart there. Okay, that's the name of that chart there. That's the name of that tune. So then we go to Dorian. We've got root 2 3. That's your Dorian string shape. Scrolling right along, we have the Phrygian string shape. Now these are all saying root 2 3 now, okay, but the Phrygian string shape is 3 4 5. But if we add 2 to it, to the root plus 2 is 3. Okay, but this is the string shape. Now it's aliased with others. It's aliased with a couple of others. Look at the Lydians, aliased with the Ionian. The Mixolydians aliased with, alias, same string shapes. So you have to count, you have to know where the count is in it. Okay, so just showing you this is the Ionian string shape. Like that, whole step, half step. Okay, that's aliased with another string shape, right? So what do we got in fifths? The G string shape, fifth of G goes to the D string shape. So that's aliased with the D string shape. See how it's whole step half? Up here, D string shape, whole step half. Okay, so these are the modes. Okay, so let's look at one. Let's look at let's do a little thing in Aeolian here. And by the way, from the last chart, I don't know if we could do this or not. No, it didn't quite connect to the last chart. Hang on. All right, let's just quickly look at. I look at the clock. If you see me looking over like that, that's my clock radio. I need to know what time it is. Clock 39. Route 393. Oh, okay. Let's get out of here. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, I'm happily married for the time being. It's only been 17 and a half years. Okay, so 393 local modal scale fitting to the long string shape patterns plus half diminished scales by method of fitting scale degrees to the local local. That means instead of 7 root 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going to go root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to subtract 1 to get the pattern. So it's root 2, 3, 4 in Locrian minus 1 is 3. So we'll do a Phrygian there. So it's okay, it gives us chord expandability, scale expandability, because you're starting a whole new scale there, or basically a Phrygian pattern, which is your third pattern. Now remember, if we get Mr. Capo on, I'll show you. So here's your E. When E, that E becomes the third, what is it the third of? It's the third of C. Okay, so we're going to do our Phrygian pattern from there. Okay. All right, so let's move along so we don't get too involved with this. If you cover too much, you know, just do charts here, just 2 charts. I wanted to show you the cello, how I lowered the action on it. Okay, so we could digress and do that right now. So here's my cello, and I lowered the action on it. How did I lower the action on it? I don't suggest you do this at home unless you know what you're doing. These things cost $5, and you might have to wait a couple of weeks if they're coming from outside of the US. But if you get them from inside, you'll get them within 2-3 mailing days. They're like $5 to $10. So if you mess this bridge up, you got to buy another one. But what I did was I lowered it down. So I put it on the cutting board, drew a a template here, so you can still kind of see the lines there. Brought it down, put the grooves in, and I brought the action down. Now the problem is my design that's on the fretboard here, a fingerboard they call it in cello, is done with mathematical formulas as if the surface of this fingerboard was where the string was. Okay? So in other words, it works if you pluck it sideways. It works for the open string. But that's just done by tuning here. Okay? How do you stop the string? You'd have to pinch it here and go. See, if you pinch it without pressing it down against the fretboard of the fingerboard, this formula still holds. So I had to bring the action of this cello down as close as I dared, and then I had to raise it up again. So I put little booties, little double white duct tape booties. I like to have my duct tape on my old booties to raise it up, back up again, because the one string got a little too close to the fingerboard. So now the action's closer, so that when I press it against the fingerboard, I'm not tightening that string. Because even though it gets a little longer, when you stretch a string down like that, you're making this little very slim triangle. It gets longer, this string, but it gets tauter. So it's a trade-off. And that's what I got. So I brought the action down by cutting it down about, I'll tell you, about almost 2/3 of a centimeter. Okay, so this didn't happen at once. I had to do twice on it. Brought it down as low as it can go, and I've got it pretty well. Now this one's a little flat here. Okay, this one's very flat.